Yeah, we just.
All right, good afternoon, everyone.
No.
Thanks for being patient with us. As you may remember from last meeting, Sally has departed. And so we're still working on figuring out a lot of the logistics as we go. So we really appreciate your patience with us. And we'll hopefully be able to kick technology in the butt and make it work for us. And have some smoother sailing in the future. For those of you that I haven't seen before, my name is Nicole Damiano. I'm one of the co-chairs of the Mental Health Task Force. We do have a hybrid option, so you'll see we have the screens down and we have Montreal with his ginormous setup. So we are hoping to have smooth sailing with this hybrid meeting as well. For those of you who are hybrid, I know that transportation and time is an issue, but we would love to see your faces in person. So for you that are participating in Zoom, please share any of your questions or tech issues in the chat. We will be monitoring the chat to assist you. Please remain muted to minimize background noise. Funny story about that, my cat jumped on my computer while I was in a pretty big meeting with the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation, and unmuted me while I was going to the bathroom. So we understand that happens sometimes. We are going to have the auto captioning feature turned on, and you can choose to pin the speaker. Actually, we have pinned our view as the speaker here for everyone. One moment. Okay. Be the other Nicole. Hey. How's it? Is that my computer or yours? We're getting an echo in here. Good. Is it?
What about that?
Let's try it again. Hey. All right. Looking. My goodness. We will, like I said, hybrid. It's challenging. But we can appreciate the barriers to getting here in person. And if you can get here, we'd love to see you. Okay. Christine, what are you doing with my picture here? I keep Xing you out. Oh, okay. Don't let them in. All right. So my name's Nicole Damiano again, co-chair here. We the month of May is Children's Mental Health Awareness Month, and so we have some really cool things happening here today. We do have a counselor here from a K-8 school, actually 2 schools, to guide us in one of the lesson plans that are done in the schools. And Montreal Cain has been able to corral some young adults and to speak here today about the challenges that they have faced and how they have overcome those or are still working on them. So we're really excited about that today. You're going to hear me talk a lot. So I'm actually the first presenter. So for those of you who are not aware, I do have a master's in school counseling. Unlike Amy, I got the heck out of Dodge immediately after getting my degree. And so I'm here to just do the bare bones work and help you understand what school counseling looks like today. And then Amy's going to fill in a lot of those blanks. So I'm going to just pull up my presentation here. And I'm usually where Christine is in that dark corner there, just controlling and not actually doing all of the tech stuff from up front. So here we go. Okay. So we have in the school counseling realm quite a battle. We've had quite a battle between guidance counselor and school counselor. So for those of you in the audience, let's see a raise of hands who, when they were going to school, it was called guidance counselor. All right. We got a fair number of hands. I think maybe 4 or 5 people didn't raise their hands. So I come from the school counseling camp. That's really where we're going. This is what we're looking at these days. So I'm curious, anyone who can shout out or, you know, I don't know, give us a name of their counselor. Does anybody remember their counselor's name?
Schneider, Jerry Chadwell.
Schneider.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make, I'm sorry, interpreters. I'm a jerk. I'm gonna have all these complicated names shouted out, and you're gonna have to figure out how to spell them. So we have a few people here who remember counselors. Mine was Dr. Carrie King. She is the program director at Mount Mary University for School Counseling and Mental Health Counseling. So growing up, I actually had quite a few school counselors represented on TV. This first picture is from the show Everybody Hates Chris, and his school counselor basically was like, I think he wanted to be like a race car driver, and he was just like, I'm just here to make money. I don't care what you say. I don't, whatever. For any of you who have ever watched South Park, we had Mr. McKay, I think it was, or Miss McKee, but he would just always go up in front of class and say, drugs are bad, okay, and didn't give a whole lot of help. And then this last one is from a scene from a movie that was around when I was growing up, was 10 Things I Hate About You. And this counselor was very inappropriate. She was working on writing a very inappropriate novel, an adult novel. And so she really didn't give a whole lot of time to students and was swearing at them and telling them to go back to class all the time. So unfortunately, we've been represented not well in media and even in the community, because there's just been a lot of confusion about what school counselors do and even who they are and what they're called. So school counseling followed a lot of the trends that were happening, and guidance counseling, vocational guidance counseling happened with the Industrial Revolution. I'm not going to go through all these points, but basically it was like, hey, we got all these kids in high school now, and we got to figure out what to do with them. And basically we want them to be able to go into all our factories and do all work for us. That's how high schools were invented. And so the guidance counselors were there to get people into a vocation. And psychology developed more so away from Freud and client-centered. So now we're thinking about like, oh, like maybe we should pay attention to the person and their adjustment and their development. We got some funding for school counselors in the 50s and 60s because American students were not doing well and they were shoveling money at the schools to get people into those STEM fields to go to college we gotta beat the Russians to space. With the civil rights movement, we have multiculturalism entering into those spaces. And part of that came this idea of we have to be able to research and look at what we're doing and if we're doing it well. And now we're kind of in that 1990s. I know I feel like that's now. It's today, right? It was yesterday, 1990. So in the 90s and moving forward, school counselors finally said, like, we're school counselors, we're not guidance counselors. We are part of pupil services and we are here to help the whole student. And we got away from that guidance counselor piece. And the American School Counselor Association, which developed in the 50s, came up with a model in 2003 for all school counselors to follow. It's been tweaked and modified along the way, but that's really where we're coming from. So the school counseling role and what school counselors do in this model are 4 different tiers. So we have define, manage, deliver, and assess. And so we're not just like willy-nilly out there just trying to love everybody. What was that Freaks and Geeks? Did you all see Freaks and Geeks show where the guy like was a hippie and sang songs? We're not that. So the model moved us into a more data-informed space and making goals and assessing and creating programs and doing all of this stuff while also looking at equity. How can we close the gap? So that define piece is we've got student standards, mindsets, and behaviors. They actually have some that are defined and benchmarks, and our ethical standards and professional standards. We then, once we've defined those standards, we look at our program focus. So this is in the school. It's not necessarily like each school has the same program. It's all based individually on that school. So looking at what the beliefs, the mission, and the vision of the school are, and as a school counselor, and then planning those things. So developing goals and action plans and lesson plans and an advisory council. So somebody who, folks that would be stakeholders in those school counseling programs. And then the American School Counselors Association really came through and they put a whole list of what's appropriate for counselors to be doing and what's not. And there's a whole lot of memes out there about like when school starts that school counselors are like, oh, great, now we have to do the class change. Everybody's gotta come change their classes because they're not with their friend. That's not a school counselor job. We are not administrators. We are counselors. We can help students plan for their future and decide classes, but we're not there to do the paperwork. We're not there to discipline. I had a lot of time disciplining students in my school counseling internship. I was asked to call home for someone who said they had to go number 2 when the teacher asked them what they needed to do in the bathroom. Well, don't ask that question if you don't want that answer. And they were like, school counseling intern, please have this phone call. So they've really helped people understand what's appropriate, what's not. And then we deliver that program both directly with students, but then also we're collaborating with other resources, community resources. We're providing the names of mental health counselors in the area that specialize in certain arenas and with certain populations. We're making referrals. But also we're like in the classrooms doing instruction and not drugs are bad and dare. It's a lot of social and emotional development. And then we also have to assess it. So there's a lot of I don't know, like I said, I got out of Dodge, but Amy, how much assessing do you do of your program?
Not as much as I should.
Yeah, not as, I think
Pretty
that's for
much,
all of us,
yeah,
right?
Beginning and the end of the year.
Yeah. Yeah, so doing those beginning of end, seeing if we've made any impact, developing new goals for the next year, or saying, hey, we didn't hit that goal. We gotta keep going. So Amy's actually gonna do a lesson plan for us, Amy Wilbourne. She is a licensed school counselor for Grant School, elementary school from K through 8, and Ideal School, K through 8 as well. And she's gonna be facilitating a lesson plan for us. We hope that you'll participate. And for those folks who are hybrid, please just put your messages in the chat for participating. So thanks for your time. What's that?
Hi, I'm Amy Wilbourne. As she said, I'm a school counselor in MPS. I'm on year 8 and 12 in the profession. I started with 4 schools, down to 3, then I had 1, now I'm back to 2. If that tells you anything about the equity of counseling in Milwaukee Public Schools. A lot of people don't know that there are elementary school counselors or what our role is, because we don't, send kids off to college. I'll tell you a little bit about what my day is like. So I might be in a classroom with a 5-year-old, classroom of 5-year-olds, as I was today, doing social emotional lessons. Sometimes I have a puppet on my hand, and then I might go to 8th grade and I have to, change my lingo. So, so I didn't get run out of the room, but they do still ask about the dog puppet through like 5th or 6th grade. So yeah, where's Champ? It's me. I don't have Champ. So yeah, I deliver lessons. I do small groups that are mental health focused usually. And on any given day, I might be doing a suicide risk assessment or self-harm. I counsel students individually. As you might guess, since the pandemic, the mental health needs of our students have increased quite significantly. So it's been challenging. So I prepared a lesson for today that I've done with 6th grade students. Today, we're thinking of it more like a 4th, 5th grade. I did it as part of a career unit. That's one of the things that I, in addition to social emotional lessons, I do career lessons, help students sign up for high school, prepare them for high school. I do talk about college and career. So this lesson kind of covers several areas in the Ask a School model as far as behavior, social emotional, and going out into the world. Something we all need and use, which is interpersonal skills or relationship skills. Pretty much every issue in our school can be boiled down to that. So if a student comes to me and they're having issues with other students and the teacher has asked me to work out a conflict and do some restorative practices, usually there's some component of interpersonal skills that are not working out. So we're going to think of interpersonal skills today like we are building or creating a dish or a cake. We're going to create a recipe for interpersonal skills. So if I were to bake a cake and leave out an egg, how do you think that cake would turn out? Probably flat, not so great. And so the same thing is true with interpersonal or relationship skills. All right, there's certain key components that if they're left out, things aren't going to go very well. So I thought we would just brainstorm a little bit and let's talk about what are some of those relationship skills that somebody might need to make sure we bake a good relationship cake. We'll just brainstorm. You can just say them out loud.
Communication.
Communication. Maybe we can break that down a little bit.
Listening.
Listening. Anything else?
Credibility.
Credibility. Ooh.
Is it hot?
Oh, I'm gonna have to run that one past my students. What else?
Listening,
We got listening,
body language.
boundaries. Ooh, that's a good one too. And Nicole alluded to the bathroom comment that their boundaries aren't so great sometimes. Any other
Keeping commitments. If you're gonna do, if you're gonna.
commitment? I like that.
Like body language and social cues.
Yeah, body language. Anything else we wanna?
Forgiveness. Forgiveness.
Forgiveness.
Break that.
I forgive you.
Anything else we want to add?
Civility.
Civility?
Trust.
Trust.
Open-mindedness.
Open-mindedness. That's great.
Curiosity.
Right. So thinking of working with other people who put kids on a project together. Anything else that you think they might need?
Respect.
Cultural awareness.
I'm sorry, I heard one of my
They need to be compassionate.
compassionate.
Team player.
I heard something.
Team player.
Team player, there you go. Ability to collaborate. So yeah, team player. I think we can work with that. I usually do lessons like exclusively on listening or exclusively on, you know, social cues, body language, things like that. So I'm going to hand out to you. You can participate at whatever level you feel comfortable with. You're going to create your own little recipe card.
Sorry. No, you're good.
Pick one of those two.
Amy, how many colors? As many or
As
little?
many or few as they want.
I just found this in our storage closet. It's like, yeah, it was so exciting.
So many, yeah. My life.
All right, so the instructions are on the orange paper. You've each been given a card and your card must be completed on that paper given with your name on the back. Okay, I'm not gonna check. So You should identify 5 interpersonal skills that would be needed to maintain quality relationships. And then make sure your card is decorated so that it is attractive in those markers. While you're working, I skipped over this part, is having a discussion, which I would with the students, about where they might use interpersonal skills. Why do they need them? And I'll just let you work and think about that. And we can talk about that. I'm gonna give you 5 minutes or so, work on the card, and then we can share out a little bit. That works for you?
Amy, do you have an extra card? Oh, I got
On the back, she said the name. Vicky was not really. Like that. Vacation.
Okay, so I am very far from being an artist. Here's an example of what my recipe card looks like. So just 5 things, and they can be something up here, they can be something that we haven't thought of yet.
Question,
Yes.
what age are these, of children are these skills being taught?
So I did this lesson with 6th graders, but I would do it anywhere from 4th to 6th grade. So some of these skills I teach, like listening, I started
Like your spelling.
doing lessons about that when they're much younger, but throwing words like interpersonal skills, I don't. Couldn't go younger.
Amy, do you mind just reading off these instructions a little bit for folks that are home if they want to jot it down on a piece of paper?
Oh, sure. So if you're on Zoom, you can, any piece of paper, you're going to write 5 interpersonal or relationship skills that are needed to maintain quality relationships. And you want to decorate your card, although I won't see it. So. With the 6th grade, it was, I think I mentioned this before, but this was part of doing, a series of career lessons with them and the importance of interpersonal skills in the workplace.
Don't need that. Everybody likes some water while you're working on your.
I was parched on the way. Thank you. Thank you. Michelle was thinking. Yeah, she
We gotta get this really on screen. Zoom in on this. Somewhere. For those of you at home. We have a box of 256 markers here. It's like a childhood dream.
Some are not.
Some are not working.
I was gonna say, I had a box like that. And tried out. So while you're finishing up, usually when we do a lesson, we want some sort of assessment. The recipe card would be my assessment for the student, and what I did with these was put them on some poster board and hung them in the hallways. They could be hung in the classroom, in the cafeteria, anywhere that students might be able to see them, so that it's spread not just to, one grade level, but to other students in the school. Anybody feel brave enough to share their recipe for relationship success? Yes.
I said motivation, patience, adaptability, problem solving, collaboration, leadership, and positive mental attitude.
Very nice. I like it. Anybody else? Yes.
I put reciprocity, kindness, with being willing to be challenged. Curiosity instead of judgment, patience and grace, and thoughtful communication.
Nice. Thank you. One last person want to share? Yes.
Sure, mine is listening, boundaries, commitment, non-judgmental, and honesty.
Great. Thank you very much. This could be an opportunity if somebody's recipe was missing something to tell them their cake isn't going to work out, but I don't want to make anybody feel bad, so I'm not going to do that. So let's just talk for a minute, like where a person might need relationship skills.
On the football field.
On the football field, yes.
In the hallway.
In the hallway,
In the boardroom.
in the boardroom,
In the orchestra.
in the orchestra,
In college,
in college, absolutely,
Library.
library,
At the doctor's office.
at the doctor's office,
On social media.
absolutely, social media. Ooh, social media.
Thanksgiving dinner.
What's that?
Thanksgiving dinner.
Thanksgiving dinner,
Yes.
sure,
Dinner.
Arcade.
arcade. I like the examples a lot because, a lot of times students want to ask them what they want to do when they grow up. Professional athlete is in the top 5, and YouTuber, there are going to be a lot of YouTubers. But I tell the students, they need interpersonal skills every day. We need them at school. Most of the groups that I do are about students getting along with others. It's challenging, so this is an important lesson for them. Thank you for doing the recipe cards, and you can keep them. And I'll just give you a chance to, if you have any questions about what the school counseling role, which, by the way, my coworkers still call me a guidance counselor. So, and I graduated, what, 13 years ago? And as a school counselor, and it's not sinking in. But any questions about my role or about the topic? Yes.
There a difference between what you do and a social worker?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. So at least in MPS, when I worked in Kenosha, they had a dual role, and so that you were either trained as a counselor or a social worker, but you did both parts of the job there. But in MPS, the school social worker is responsible for attendance, which thank goodness I'm not. It's a huge uphill battle. They also do more work with students that are homeless or need resources like internet or clothing, and connect them. I mean, I do connect families with services, mental health services outside of the district, but often social workers also fill that role. So we overlap and we work together. In fact, we share an office at one of my schools. So, yeah.
Not a question, but just some more recipe items.
Yeah.
Understanding and respecting others who look and act differently. How to share experiences to help each other, how to ask for help and not feel ashamed about needing it, expressing creativity and being part of community. Oh, there is a question. How has parent influence changed since you started and what you experience now?
Well, I'm gonna first talk about your recipe a little bit, because I didn't tell you about my schools, and Grant is where I am 4 days a week. So I'm going to tell you about that just a little bit, because I feel like a lot of Milwaukee doesn't know, and you probably do, but we have a huge refugee population in Milwaukee. Grant is the #1 school right now for refugees. So almost 50% of our students have come from another country. We have at least 10 languages. So this piece of understanding and, valuing other people's cultures, we look great. You're like, wow, what a diverse, set of students, but they are not always kind to each other about their religion, about, the way that they dress, about the way that they talk. So that is something that, as this population has grown in our school, we've realized that's something that we need to address more readily. The parent involvement is not fantastic at my school. And I will say the refugee parents are very involved, but there is that language barrier. So MPS has a language line. We are able to get, any language and able to communicate. It's just an extra step. But it's challenging even to get parents to help their kids sign up for high school. And I don't blame the parents for that. I think part of it is a barrier of, how MPS disseminates information and relates to parents that are, in the district. So, but that's part of the job too, is just kind of communicate with families so that they know and understand what's going on. So, thanks. Anything else? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Oh, yeah.
So how do you feel about not having, I guess, the lack of acknowledgement from your peers at this point in time, with being referenced to as a guidance counselor versus a school counselor? I'm a social worker, so I just, from that standpoint, that's one question. And the other question is, you've got a really challenging position, particularly at Grant. And do you find that with the refugee population that you're working with, refugee populations, because you've got, you said 10 different refugee populations. Relative to mental health. Are there any of the refugee populations that are more open to looking at mental health issues with their children versus others?
Thank you. In regards to the being called a guidance counselor versus a school counselor, that's like pretty low on my list of concerns when I'm at work. So they, I do guidance lessons. The challenge for me is, teachers not, because they have a classroom of students, they, might see me sitting at my desk, or I can go to the bathroom when I want to. So they don't always, they think that we don't have a difficult job. This year I had a third grader who reported about 7 different ways that he might complete suicide. So it's a heavy job some days. And so, yeah, some days I might not, there's a lack of understanding sometimes with classroom teachers. So the label, that part doesn't bother me as much as they don't always know what we do, because we don't go, and it's confidential. So we don't go talking about it. As far as the different cultures, I mean, I want to say that it's less attached to a particular culture as it is to information and resources. So a lot of the families are connected to different groups in the Milwaukee community already. And I feel like the ones that have the more, some of them have like family representatives and things like that, families that are from Afghanistan and Malaysia. Often there's a representative that helps them. I feel like the more resources they have, the more, knowledge and openness they have about mental health.
Who needs the most help?
Who needs the most help? Everybody.
I understand, but I'm
Yeah.
talking culturally.
Culturally?
Who has the least support?
Well, I don't have a sense of who needs the most, really. I mean, the Rohingya population, they've had a lot of trauma. So I guess, yeah, but I don't have like data on, who would need the most. I mean, we have families of every background that have had mental health issues, so. Thanks for the question. Sorry, I don't have more. Anybody else? All right, thank you so much. It was an honor to be invited.
Thank you, Amy. Next on our agenda, we have Montreal Cain, who's going to be leading a panel of youths and young adults. Montreal will be better able to talk about how he has collaborated, worked with, met all the individuals on the panel, and give them a better introduction than anything that I can do. So thank you, Montreal, for finding folks to talk to us old people.
I'll take that. Now I feel like I need some music.
Great. What matter.
How's everybody doing? Good. It's good to be back up here again on this not so sunny day. After spending about a week in Puerto Rico on the Golden Shores. Yeah, it's a little different, but I'm happy to be here. I've had the privilege and the honor to serve as an educator for 13 years, teaching at the University of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, at Marshall High School. And I'm also a mentor. I have my own organization. I mentor at the Running Rebels Community Organization, but I love young people. So much so that after playing in a staff versus youth basketball game at the Running Rebels organization, I ended up mentoring for 3 more hours from 7 o'clock to 10 o'clock last night. The reason why I say that is because I decided to be who I needed growing up. I remember my first encounter with mental health was seeing a therapist in 7th grade. And that person teaching me STOP skills, which stands for stop, think, observe, and proceed. And so I've had the privilege and honor to meet so many amazing young people. And I'm gonna just tell you about a few. Can I brag on them for a second? Ladies and gentlemen, it's starting five. The first person we're gonna bring up is this handsome guy that just walked in the door. He happens to be Montreal Cain Jr. That's my son. Come on up, son. I did mean to throw you on the spot. I know you ready. You know you got this, man. How you feeling? How was school today? That's what's up, man. You come have a seat. My son is a great kid. He attends Brownder High School. He has been on the honor roll his entire life. He got it from his mom, honestly. But more specifically, we developed a culture based on you don't have to, you get to. And so there were certain conversations we had about discipline, about setting goals. And our new agreement was, hey, don't burden your parents with the scholarship costs for Morehouse. We want you to get a full ride. Every grade matters. 9th grade matters. 10th grade matters. We had these conversations, and when I tell you, I've been excited to see his report card. He's just a great kid, but most importantly, he has his own mind, his own opinion. I asked him what he wanted to do, and he talks about oceanography, how to reduce carbon emissions and plastic. At one point, he told me he wanted to be a Supreme Court justice, and I believe he can achieve anything he puts his mind to. So first up, Montreal Cain. Next person I would like to bring up is Miss Sierra Lee. I met this young lady, was it 2022?
Believe so.
2022. There was this distinguished speaker series on mental health in May, and we had all these adults just talking. And this young lady got up, and when she told her testimony of how she's been able to pioneer the pandemic, to really strive academically in the pitfalls and challenges that came with it, I'm like, look, is it okay if I call you to have speaking engagements from here or there? Because what you embody in your greatness and your resilience, I believe people need to hear it. And so when I reached out to her about 2 months ago, she was like, absolutely. She sent me a follow-up and was like, hey, we on for next week? So I'm so excited for you to be able to share your testimony and what's happened since then. So you guys, please give a round of applause for Sierra. Mr. Keon, how you doing, brother?
Good. How about you?
Good. Keon is a young man that I met at Marshall High School, but I got to know him more when he graduated. And I call him the Young Bulls. You know, he's part of a group of young men that we chop wood, we have bonfires, we roast marshmallows, and the conversations that happen around these fireside chats would make me think I was listening to some very seasoned folks. And so when I met Keon through Marquise, who I'll introduce next, I found out that him and Marquise wanted to use a social platform called YouTube. And they have a podcast called Modern Kings, where they just talk about working through life. And they have these conversations about mental health and relationships. And I was just so proud. So without further ado, Mr. Keon Amar. Absolutely. The next person I have the privilege of telling you about is Miss Sierra Robinson. When I met Sierra through the Running Rebels Community Organization, she came up to me and she scared the life out of me. She was like, can you mentor me? And I'm like, no, but my wife can. So I introduced her to my wife, and I watched how she mentored other young girls. She works with an organization called Dream Keepers, and she does these retreats with young women where they come, they learn, they grow, they dream, they aspire, and they are stewarded over her leadership. And so I reached out to Sierra, I want to say about 2 years ago, and said, hey, can you come and speak to the Salvation Army and give them perspective of young people, you know, and really help them kind of understand, how are you becoming a champion in your mental health? What are your goals? She said she wanted to be an influencer. She said that she wanted to be able to get in front of folks and speak. And literally within a year, she was hosting events with national NBA champions and really just doing her thing with national recording artists that are Grammy Award winning. And I'm like, wow, look what happens when you develop that mental muscle, you set goals and you execute. So, ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Sierra. I'm gonna cry in the car, I promise. And last but not least, student, mentee, nephew, son. I call him Nightwing. You guys can call him Marquise, but Marquise was one of my students back in 2018. He had this amazing hair and it just reached up like, what did it reach up like? Like a cockatoo. It was up here, man. It was fly. And he had all this confidence and zeal. But there was a moment where we wanted to get live streaming to be a part of the school. And so I said, Marquise, can I teach you some things? And you become a producer in this class. And he not only exceeded the expectations, after he graduated, he kept coming back to the school and volunteering. He became an amazing graphic designer. He ended up designing the logo for Milwaukee Marshall High School that's on the new gymnasium floor. He has a contract with Milwaukee Public Schools doing all of the video production work for their athletic department. He has a contract with Goodwill International doing their video work, and he's way better than me. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Mr. Marquise Boss. I had to do it short, man. I said you ain't gonna make me cry today. I cried earlier this morning, okay? I love young people. So this is a fireside chat. In other words, you don't have to bring an axe, but you should be smelling the s'mores right now. Whether you like Twix or Snickers or Reese's Cups, that's how fancy we get at our bonfires. We have all that, right? This is one of those moments where we're just going to have a discussion about mental health and give the young people an opportunity to just talk about what mental health means to them. And so in no particular order, I would like for you all to tell me, what is your definition of mental health and how has it shown up in your life? There's two mics on each side of the table.
That is good. Yes, I'll do it. Can y'all hear me? Yeah. Okay, so I think my definition of mental health is facing whatever you're going through mentally, whether that's depression, anxiety, whatever you may be feeling in that moment, and just getting through the day, getting through your life with a strong mindset, knowing that, I don't know about you, but I believe faithfully in God, knowing that my trust in God is going to get me through my day, get me through whatever rough time or circumstance that I'm in.
That was a great answer. My definition of mental health is paying attention to what happens to the mind and the mental. I feel like every day is kind of a experience of me paying attention to it more and more because as I was growing up, it wasn't that many teachings about it. Like I didn't know how important it was. So it was something I had to experience and find out by myself. And it wasn't the easiest, but I believe it's very important what goes on in the mind as far as the things we can't see, anxiety, depression, sadness, and all these emotions that sometimes we aren't able to put in words. So.
Hey, how y'all doing? Everybody didn't ask. How you doing, sir? Yeah, I just want to make sure everybody doing good. Mental health to me is the ability to get better every day. Because sometimes when you struggle with your mental health, you stop. So as long as you're willing to keep trying every single day, I feel like you're being able to put your mental health in a good mind state.
Yeah, I would say for me, mental health is pretty much self-awareness. So the way I always like to break it down is like in 4 pillars. Self-awareness when it comes to mental, spiritual, physical, and emotional. Just having that self-awareness all around the board, because a lot of people will focus only like one or out of those 4 or 2. But I feel like you got to focus on all 4 in order to kind of be good, all around the board. So that's how I would break it down.
My definition of mental health would be, the dictionary definition is anything that affects the mental or emotional wellness of a person. but my personal definition would be just how you feel and how you interpret things, just how you feel. So,
That was good.
Absolutely. Ah, I'm just so proud, can't you tell? There's a phrase, and sometimes we get caught up in professional grammar. You can say a thing in one industry and mean something in another industry. What does it mean to be proficient in emotional intelligence? I see that face here.
One more time.
Right.
What does it mean to be proficient in emotional intelligence?
Okay. For you to be proficient in emotional intelligence, I think it takes a certain level of awareness. Like I said earlier, a lot of us sometimes don't know how to put in words what we're feeling, but I think being proficient starts with at least acknowledging what you're feeling in that moment, because a lot of us don't know how to describe the things we feel, especially those of us who come from a background where it's not encouraged. So a lot of the times, people in my community, we grow up going through things and having to brush it under the carpet. So we're not proficient in speaking about it. So I think I personally grew proficient in first acknowledging it and then vocalizing, I need help in this area, and just having enough humility to ask for the help. I think a lot of us sometimes are a lot more prideful, and we're always taught, maybe from parents, maybe from people we admire, when you go through things, go through it in private. Take a little time for yourself, then come back. But no, I need help. I don't know how to deal with what I'm feeling, and I'm asking for help. So I think that's what makes you proficient in emotional intelligence.
I'm gonna copy what Sierra said. I used to cheat in high school. Nah, it's fine. But basically to piggyback off of what Sierra said, I feel like the real way of being proficient in emotional intelligence is knowing there's a problem. Too many people continue to live on from day to day, not realizing why they're having certain just mental outbreaks or just being sad out of nowhere. Like it's a sunny day and you're just sad. So knowing there's a problem instead of going through every single day trying to ignore it. So
Same off of what Sierra said, except I have to add one more thing. Learning to be okay, not to be okay. I think sometimes, especially growing up, and I'm just gonna keep it real, in the Black community, we're not taught to acknowledge how we feel. See, back then we were taught to be strong, not to be boastful about our emotions. So growing up in my household, my mom would always say, "Are you okay?" And if we were lying, she would be like, "I know my daughter. I know my child." I'm like, "Okay, what's up?" Acknowledging that you're about to cry or you're just not happy. Just what he said, like, it could be a sunny day and you're just sad for no reason at all. I've had those days where I'll call my mom, just like Sierra said, asking for help. I'm like, "Mom, I don't know what's going on. I'm not comfortable seeing a therapist." And my mom will be like, "It's okay. That's what they're there for." Like, you have that support. Knowing to be surrounded with others who have the same emotions or feel the same way that you do, so that you're able to lean on them for support. Because I know how it feels to be surrounded about a bunch of people who don't know how you personally feel, and they're acknowledging like, "Girl, you'll be fine," or "It's okay," or pushing it under the rug. But being around people who actually feel how you feel and are like, "Do you want to cry about it?" And we cry together. Like, that right there is what I call proficient emotionally intelligence. Crying with someone, knowing that I'm not the only person going through what I'm going through. Because I don't know about you all here, but after the pandemic, my mental has not been the same. I find myself crying almost every day. I'm not there. I'm unmotivated. And it's like, you have to kind of figure out who do you turn to? But you have a village, and as long as you have your mom, as long as you have your friend, as long as you have your fiance, your spouse, or someone that you can trust to call on, to lean on, then that's right there is proficient emotional intelligence right there.
Would say even to kind of piggyback off of that, one of the angle I was gonna take with it is kind of being on the other side when it's not just you, but being that person to identify that somebody has some emotional things going on. Me personally, you know, like Montreal said, I do a lot of things, but I pride myself on kind of being like a counselor or a therapist for like a lot of my loved ones and my family members. So my emotional intelligence come from identifying with my mom or my dad, you know, somebody kind of close to me is kind of going through it, but being able to pick up on them signs, because a lot of times people, like we said, not gonna say when they really going through depression, they're not gonna put it out there. So I feel like emotional intelligence also comes from being able to identify it in other people, but it comes from working on it within yourself. So because if you can be that person to identify it in somebody else, they might not have to realize, like me and my brother Keon, you know, it'd have been times and I'd be like, man, you know, you kind of look like you're going through it, you know, and I'm pretty sure you know, y'all might have related with that same thing when it's your sisters or something like that. So I feel like that's another key part of it too.
To piggyback off of all of it, pretty much, I say the biggest part to me is not only being aware of how you feel in yourself, but being aware of the room and everyone else around you. It's very important that, like, not necessarily knowing what to say when, but like when you can read the room, it's a little easier to like express yourself. So, yeah.
That was a great.
Part of the reason why I wanted to start off with these questions is because I wanted everyone to know how brilliant you truly are. So now we're going to ask you for some advice, because we can tell y'all got it going on, right?
Yeah.
There was a question asked earlier. How do we get students to be kind to other students? How do we do that? Does anyone want to take it? And don't feel free to take the mic and drop it, right? Like, everybody doesn't have to chime in, because I want to get us some deep questions and I really want to hear from you all.
So back in middle school, I went to Milwaukee College Prep, 36th Street. Shout out to MCP. We had these things where our teachers were Black. So like our school is predominantly Black, and because mental health wasn't being talked about, they brought it to us. We had this thing called restorative justice, where every Monday, so we had it once a week, every Monday, Miss Jordan and Mr. Allen, shout out to y'all, they got us all into 2 classrooms and we created a circle. We had a talking piece and we talked about our day. We talked about our week. We talked about what was going on at home. And what we did was we said, what stays in this room, stays in this room. So whatever is said in here, it stays in here. And we just got our emotions out. We cried, we laughed, we joked. And at the end of the day, that created a stronger community and a stronger bond between all of us. And I think doing that in schools should definitely be incorporated, because that right there, we grew a family right there in those very classrooms. And to this day, I still follow those kids and follow those people on Facebook, and they are magnificent human beings. So just creating a bond between teachers and students, period, because you never know what your students are going on behind closed doors. What y'all call acting out might be a cry for help. Y'all just never know. That might right there might be their turning point. We don't come to school to act out. We come because our parents aren't acknowledging how we really feel. Our parents aren't seeing what we're going through, because most of the time, these parents have at least 2, 3 kids, but they have 2 other jobs. They have 2 other kids or somebody else that they have to tend to, and they don't have time for just one person or one particular child. So their attention is being put on to more other tasks like jobs and, you know, partnerships and deals with their companies and other things besides their children. So just taking the time out to check on the kid or just check on the whole bunch and saying, what's going on at home? How are we feeling today? That right there can make a difference to each and every kid in that room. That right there says that we're being heard and that you are here to care for us, and not just us mentally, but just us as a human being. We sometimes as children, we feel like robots in our homes. It's like we have this routine. Nobody wants to do that every time. So coming to school and they just So we're about to do restorative justice. Anybody has something going on? That right there is the moment for you to take the time out to listen to those kids and see what they're going through. That right there can mean a lot to not just one, but a whole lot of those students. Incorporate that in those schools, because if you don't, it's just gonna keep our mentals are gonna keep deteriorating from there.
Wow. Questions. You're not talking about Miss Jordan that's over at Mesmer, are you?
Yes, Miss Jordan over at Mesmer. That was my 8th grade teacher right there.
That's what's I called Miss Jordan this morning. I've been in a position where I've been able to influence a lot of folks. And what I'm hearing what you're saying is that innovation that took place at MCP is now at Mesmer, right?
Yes,
Mesmer hired me, I want to say 4 weeks ago. They said, Montreal, we got about 5 seniors that need a big brother, a mentor, a counselor, a friend. Can you help? That was the only call of action. And write us up a scope of work, right? And so I ended up developing a curriculum around mental muscle. Mental muscle stands for the M in mental muscle is move the obstacles to the side. The U is to utilize credible resources. The C is to calculate the best outcome of those resources. The L is to leave room for unexpected challenges. And the E is to expect victory.
Absolutely.
One of the things that I noticed was the young people, they didn't think they could do it.
Right.
I go into these spaces and they're so discouraged, like life be lifing, right? And so when I listen to you talk about restorative practices, the mental health task force is an advocacy place. We advocate for things. What type of advocacy should we be doing to make sure that the type of experiences that you all are referencing can continue to happen in these schools?
A lot of these students don't have role models. In the Black community especially, our parents are either, some of them I can speak for secondhand experience because I've seen it. Some of them either on drugs or some are in jail, in prison. Being able to take the time out of your day to pull that child or just pull a room together and say, look, what do y'all need from us? Like being vulnerable. Because a lot of the times our parents weren't vulnerable. Their parents' weren't vulnerable. So being vulnerable with the students and saying, I acknowledge how you're feeling, but we need to get to the root of it. Like what's really going on, and sitting down and talking to them helps. Even if you have, because I know it's a lot of students out there who have parents who actually care, talking to their parents and saying, hey, we noticed that such and such has been off today. Is anything going on at home that y'all, want us to address or, we need help with? That right there can make a difference, not within that parent's life, but within that child's life as well, because they're also feeling acknowledged from both you and the parent. So sitting down and saying, hey, I know you're not okay, because we all have our days. We know that one student who usually is the class clown or just always joking around. We know when they come in and they not having a good day. That should be that time right there to say what's going on, because you never know if that's their breaking moment or if that's their moment where they're just like, they're out of it. Because I've had friends who killed themselves. Like I'll be around my friends and I'm like, hey, how's school going? They're like, it's going good, and then, you come to school the next day, especially in high school. You come to school the next day and they're like, did you hear about Tasha? Did you hear about Brittany? Did you hear? And I'm like, no, what happened? And they're like, they killed themselves. And you like, well, what happened? And you come to find out in that moment they were being bullied, or it was something going on outside of their control. Sometimes they don't have control over what's going on around them. And sometimes they need somebody to intervene and step in. And I feel like a lot of the times teachers are so set on getting a curriculum through to these students that they're not so set on the mindset that their students are going through.
While you're speaking, I'm thinking about IEPs, individual education programs, plans, excuse me. A lot of times those are designed for young people who identify with some type of challenge, and they have admitted it. The family is aware and a plan is put in place. But what about the young people that don't? And the reason why I think about this morning around 6 a.m., one of the guys texts me. I'm like, hey, brother, you ready to get the W today? I got tutoring set up for you after school. Meet this person in this room. He said, ain't no point of that. I'm not going to finish. And I have to the end of today to get 2 weeks worth of work done. And the thing that burdened me is that there's not enough education to every culture to advocate for yourself and say, I need a mental health day. You know, and so I find myself in these spaces where people get excited when I show up because I do what everybody else does, but we don't know we have those resources. We don't know what it means to take a gap year and not feel like a failure. We don't know what it feels like to say, I'm not okay today, and I'm just going to stay in the bed. How can we normalize saying I'm not okay?
I think that's such an interesting question because for so long I felt guilty with saying it. But I do believe it's important and it's a necessity because if you never take a look in the inside, sometimes you will fall into a breaking point that will lead you into a point where everybody think you tripping or everybody think you've gone mad. But sometimes a lot of people like teachers and stuff like that, they do push the learning curriculum on you. And if you're not clicking, they automatically think you have a learning disability. But what you don't know is I've been struggling finding out how I'm going to eat for the last week, how my sister is going to get to and from. And I don't have time to focus on what X plus Y equals because I'm so busy thinking about this and that. But had it been accepted or encouraged for a student to come and say, hey, I need some time off and not make that person feel like weak or unimportant, I think children would feel safer with being, I need a break today or I need help today. But I just think it's important to encourage a safer environment for the breaks because it's very much needed.
I feel like a way to open up them conversations is by showing them through example. You go to them and say, you're not okay. You know, you show them how to do it. You know, like Sierra said, I've also felt guilty for not being okay because I was blessed enough to grow up with both parents in my household. Never have to worry about food, clothes. They gave me what I needed and what I wanted. So I just felt like I had no room to say I'm not okay because I got everything. Not knowing I'm still human at the end of the day. Everyone goes through things. So it's just more, I'm still working with it. Just open up them conversations, you know, even to younger guys I talk to, you know, I start with my problems, you know, I'm saying I'm not okay. And that makes them able to open up also.
I definitely agree. Because if you can, as a young woman, set foot in a room with another bunch of young women and say, I'm not okay, so let's talk about it, they're definitely going to be like, oh, I'm not the only one. You know, like I've had teachers in the past who've been like, this not your best day. And they acknowledge that because they know truthfully deep down inside who I am. And they know that this is not true. So acknowledging that they're not okay because you're not okay, because it's something called energy. You feel people's energy. My mom used to tell me, keep that same energy. And I felt that, like, I'm like, what does she mean? And stepping into a room, just like Montreal Jr. says, like, yeah, something off. And being able to pinpoint what's off in that room or what's off within that person is going to help a whole lot by talking about it. That's another reason why a lot of us don't want to talk about it is because it's not being talked about. So opening conversations and being that role model, sort of say, and being able to have that conversation with those students and saying, I'm not okay because you're not okay. It's saying, oh, so you're acknowledging that I'm not okay because you're not okay, because the energy there is not given, is what we would say. It's not given. So being able to acknowledge that that student is not okay makes you not okay. So saying, I'm not okay. You not okay? Cause I know I'm not okay. And just leading with that conversation, because then you never know. They might be an open book. I know so many students who've just been like, I don't know about you, but it's just not my day. And I'm just like, well, why you say that? And it's just like, well, my mom don't pay attention to me much at home, or da 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 da. And you see for yourself, wow, that's why you come to school and you do some of the things you do, because you're not getting the attention that you crave or that you need. A mom and a dad is not just about putting you here on this earth and living a life. It's about emotionally going through whatever your child is going through, because whatever you're feeling, your child is feeling. And you have to be able to acknowledge, especially within teachers, that you have a child yourself. A lot of teachers that I've, what I'm saying, had in the past have had children. They know children who are going through a lot. They have children themselves. So acknowledging that, I know when my child isn't okay, so I should know when a child is not okay in general, helps a lot. Like being a conversation starter, saying we all are not okay, let's talk about it, is definitely the way to go.
I I say it ties back into the first two questions. Emotional intelligence and awareness. A lot of times, like when students aren't kind to other students, it's because they're not aware. Like if some people just speak their mind, not knowing how it could affect someone else. So if everyone was aware of what they're saying and how it makes other people feel, I feel like there would be less room for negativity.
Nice. I love how I do straight to the point.
Okay. There is a question. Which do you think is harder on mental health students to excel? I knew I was gonna read it before it disappeared. So there's a comment. There's two things I would like to do before we take questions from the audience. I want you all to just give us another pearl of wisdom, if you will, a wish list. What you wish you had. Who did you need? What did that look like? And I want you to take a moment to forward some flowers to someone in your life. They can be honored, they can have asked, that you feel like were impactful. I'm gonna start off and I'm gonna say, man, my mentors. I had Pastor Robert Randolph at 15 years old, who was busy, but I could go to his office like once every quarter and just talk. And he gave me space, and he was a pastor, but he was cool and he had swag. So I was like, when I got older, I'm like, well, I'm gonna wear all black too. And then I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that. When I started teaching, I was wearing tweed jackets and it was not culturally relevant. So I had to get some chains and some other stuff. And, because I had granddaddy swag, but I can appreciate, him. Shout out to John Daniels III for really just creating space for me to come in his office and shed a tear sometimes. I would definitely say my Aunt Star in Illinois. I met her later in life, and she was the one that kept encouraging me. Montreal, I know you got this big vision for mental health, but TT, they don't understand, they don't see it. She like, well, use your cameras. Go fund it yourself. And so I'm grateful for those people that have shown up, but I couldn't be without remiss if I didn't shout out my mom. She's a surgic tech, but she was an international missionary, and I seen her heart to give. She always was helping people. She stopped clothing drives, whatever it was that she could do. And my pops, matter of fact, I don't know if he's still here, my dad in the back. Gave me the outlet of music and really gave me space and instruments and lessons to like have an outlet, because I was mad when I was younger. But them drums, they could take it, right? And eventually I got to the piano, and it was like I've learned to cope with music, so much so that I made it a part of my ecosystem for my business. So that's who I would like to forward my flowers to.
It's just a shout out pretty much.
That in a wish list. Like if you what was that thing that if you had it, you'd be like, you would have took off, right?
Oh, okay.
What does that look like?
Oh, okay. Yeah, but yeah, that's crazy because I was gonna actually go the direction you went. But it's shouting out my mentor, shouting you out, you know what I'm saying? Because I feel like that wish list mine's kind of was having you, but I didn't know I needed it until, you know what I'm saying, we connected. But I would say, yeah, definitely having a mentor, man, is super important. I feel like for any young person, and this is probably the biggest blessing. I talk to my mama about it all the time, just saying how it changed my life. Because even me being in the mental health space, being in the business owner space, the media, doing all of the things that I'm doing, it wouldn't have been possible had me and you not connected. So just open the importance to open yourself up to a mentor. I feel like it's just super important because it can change your whole life, and that's what it. And it also inspired me. I remember one of the things you said a long time ago is that I always had it in me. You just helped me unlock it within me. So that's why I feel like it's important for young people to open themselves up to it. And now it's inspired me to mentor and give back. So that's my biggest thing. So, but I wouldn't say I feel like I really missed anything, but I feel like that was the thing that God provided me in order to, make me the best version of myself. So
I would just have to piggyback and say that my wish list that I didn't know I needed was my mentors. Shout out to my mentors that I've had, Miss Danielle, Miss Elena, Mr. Vig, my teachers. They were so crucial in my life because my grandparents would be consumed, my parents would be consumed, maybe with relationships, maybe with careers, and I felt often unseen. And so when I met these people at school and at the community centers, it was like, wow, I do have a voice. In a world so big, my voice still matters. And so that was on my wish list unknowingly, like finding that voice, finding that importance within myself. Like I'm a part of a big number, but my number still counts. And so I would just say my wish list was just finding somebody, like you said, to unlock what was in me already. And it was my voice. And it was the comfortability in finding somebody that was credible. Those interpersonal skills, it was very important and intentional for me to pay attention to because I realized what type of healthy relationship I needed in order to feel safe and comfortable to open up to somebody. And it was credibility, it was dependability, it was consistency, because so many times people can come in and out of a young person's life and make them feel like, here goes somebody else, here goes somebody else, here goes somebody else. But when you find the credibility and consistency in somebody, it just makes you feel like it's safe. Like I can be me without any strings attached or any of that. So that's definitely on my wish list growing up. And I pray that the next young person finds that as well.
I'm gonna start off with my wish list because my wish list isn't really for me. I say I wish everybody had someone like my dad because I see what a lot of people go through, and I recognize I'm like I don't understand why they do what they do because to me it doesn't make sense. But just even as far as asking for stuff, I've always had my dad there. You've always been there if I needed you, if I need to talk to you about something, I always had the safe space already. So as far as props, I'd like to thank you, Dad. And wish list, how to put somebody else.
That was nice.
Something I'm thankful for is the plan that God wrote for me. Mine's is a little weird. Tearing my ACL is probably the best thing to happen to me, and it's crazy to say that. I didn't know I had that problem until I tore my ACL. When I tore my ACL, I was just stuck in a room for months. It ended my football season, all types of stuff. So when God wrote that into my plan for me, it made me just start realizing, reaching out the problems within me emotionally, spiritually, or different relationships. So for a wish list, I wish I had mental check-ins earlier in my life, someone to do that with, holding each other accountable. I think that was one of the strategy skills over there is accountability. That's something we do need. I forgot which one y'all said it, but a village.
Yeah.
It do take a village to raise each other. So it's just, brotherhood, and thankful for my brother over there, Marquise, my brother Cain, God don't make no mistakes. Nothing happened by accident. It's a reason why we're all in this room. It's a reason why I met Marquise. It was a reason why I met Cain. Reason why I met y'all, MJ. So I'm just gonna end it.
I'm gonna start off with my wish list, and then I'm gonna start off by giving my flowers. I never knew I needed this person until later in life. They say you need your parents. I always had my mom, but I really wish I needed my dad. I wish I had him. A lot of y'all saying, why you a woman, da, 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 da. But it's really, when they say your parents are your first heartbreak, that's real. My dad was my first heartbreak, being in and out of my life, and you know what I'm saying, just acknowledging my sisters more than me, it kind of hurt me. It almost felt like I was a mistake. I felt like I was a mistake. And that's where I want to say my mental, I didn't realize my mental was the way it was until after the pandemic. And man, I really did need that man. And I'm glad to have met others in my life who stepped up to be that father figure. I'm gonna start off by saying, Montreal, when I first met him, I'm gonna just give this man his flowers right now. When I first met him, I was at a mental health panel with Dr. Johnson. And she told me, first off, I held 2 leadership roles. Don't ask me how I did it, because I'm about to tell you. I was the BSU president over at UWM. And then I stepped down from there, and Mia, shout out to Mia over at UWM, she just graduated. She asked me to be the student body president over at UWM. So I held that position for, I want to say, a year. And I don't know how I did it. I held those 2 positions down though, but yeah. Montreal, I want to thank him, because when I first spoke at Dr. Tamika Johnson's mental health conference, it was about mental health. It was about battling the mind, depression, anxiety. And you asked me where I'm at now. I stepped down from presidency over at UWM shortly after I suffered a cardiac arrest. I had went into cardiac arrest this past summer. I was speaking to Sierra because Sierra and I actually went to school and had a class together. I basically just kind of didn't take my mental health into consideration for a very long time. Even speaking at mental health conferences before this one, I didn't take it serious. And I think God sat me down this time. He truly did. I was sitting down, laying down one night, and my heart I thought it was an anxiety attack. I thought I was truly having a panic attack, the worst panic attack of my life. And I was rushed to the hospital, and what I thought went from 150 beats per minute turned to 250 beats per minute. They told me, ma'am, we're gonna have to send a crash cart in here. Like, you are about to have a whole lot of people in here in the next 2 minutes. Are you okay? I'm like, I can't breathe. I just cannot breathe. Like, I'm just out of breath. And they like, okay, we're gonna give you this syringe. They made you blow into this thing. I don't know what it's called. And I was like, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die. Like, I knew it was that moment that I just took my mental health out of the picture. Like, I'm just like, I'm done for. And my mom was on the phone with me. And this is where I got to give her flowers, because they were like, okay, she doing good. My heart rate went from 250 beats per minute. And I'm gonna tell you how God worked. My heartbeat went from 250, and when I got on the phone with my mama, it went to 175. And they were like, your mom saved you. And I was like, really? They were like, yes, she saved you, but you gotta keep talking to her for a second. And my mom was like, I love you. And your sister loves you. And I cried. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not gonna make it. I'm not gonna make it. And they were like, just keep talking to her, keep talking to her. Because every time I wouldn't talk to my mom, my heart rate just kept going up every time I didn't talk to her. And they were like, it's okay, like just breathe. And I cried that whole time. And I was in the hospital for a week. And the cardiologist came to me and he was like, we're gonna diagnose you because the medicines are working, but your heart rate is still up there. And he diagnosed me with supraventricular tachycardia and AFib. And he was like, you're gonna have to take medication for the rest of your life. I know it's hard because you're not used to it, but you need to take this serious. And he was like, what do you do? And I told him what I did. I told him in school and everything. And he said, I'm sorry to tell you this, but you're gonna have to choose. And right then and there, I felt like a failure. I already took 2 years off of school. I'm not taking no more breaks. I can't do it. And he said, you either gonna have to choose school or you just gonna have to drop out. But you can't do school and you can't be a student body president and do all that you're doing at the same time. You're young. You can't stress yourself out like this. And I'm like, I can do this. I can do this. And my mom was like, girl, if I gotta come back to this hospital and talk you out of this, I will. And my mom was like, do you just want to take a second to think about it? I was like, yeah. And I cried. And she was like, what is your decision? I said, I'm gonna have to drop the presidency and just stick with school. She said, okay. I said, but I can't go back to school this semester. She said, do what you feel is best. And right there and then I felt heard from my mom because for a long time I kept telling her my mental was just not there. And I don't know if this point was the point that she needed to know that it wasn't there, but she finally understood me. And she was like, you need a mental health day. You need to take the semester off. And I took a semester off and I'm back at Whitewater. I'm actually transferred to Whitewater. I just finished my semester off.
Nice.
So, God and my mom. But yes, I really wish I had my dad. But of all the wonderful people that I met, UW Whitewater, UW Milwaukee, I want to specifically shout out Sierra as well. She told me you have a excellent story. I think we sat for practically 3 hours after class one day and just talked about life. And she was just like, how do you do it? And from there, we followed each other on Facebook and she reached out to me and was just like, I need you here. I need you here. And ever since then, Sierra has been one of the many people that I can rely on as a friend, as a sister, to just really lean on. And just, she's an example for me to keep going. My mom is too, God, and Montreal, you are such an amazing person. Like, I don't know how you do it, but you do it. Like you do it, and you do it so gracefully too. And it's by the grace of God that I was able to cross paths with you at that conference and actually be able to feel heard. So thank you. And I wish I had a father figure just like you.
I'm sorry. Sorry to interrupt you.
No more love. I can't take it.
Sorry to interrupt you. I apologize. There's another person I want to give flowers to. I want to give flowers to Troy, the man behind the camera.
What's up, Troy?
Troy does a lot of recording for us, so he's a big part of this also. So I want to thank him too.
Oh, my last flower is actually gonna go to our next speaker. When I met Mary, I didn't know I needed a Mary in my life. It was about 3 years ago. She's like, Montreal, what's going on? She started setting up. And she was such a guiding light for me. And what I mean by that is like, I'm still wet behind the ears and new to the mental health space. I went back to school. I got a master's in counseling, but education doesn't teach you compassion.
Right.
And so when I met her and I started seeing her in different spaces and I watched how she was a leader and how she navigated, she told me about this task force. And I eventually joined the steering committee and I'm a chair. But if I didn't have her support, her encouragement, Montreal, hang in there. Montreal, don't quit. Montreal, stay the course. I would have hit it a long time ago. You know, and so it's important for all of us in this room to stay open and malleable because you don't know at what age a person can inspire you, whether they're a mentee or a mentor or aunt or uncle or a distant relative. Make sure you keep yourself open. Make sure you remain coachable and find yourself some folks that don't look like you. because there's so many other blessings that come in other forms. And I don't hide behind the challenges my culture face. What I do is I integrate and then I disrupt. So shout out to the disruptors in the room. And ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, can you give these guys a round of applause as we welcome Miss Mary Newbauer.
Hell, don't leave yet. I just want to say thank you so much to the panel. One of the other hats that I wear is I'm the production coordinator for a theatrical production called Pieces in My Own Voice. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of Pieces in My Own Voice, but we will be performing next Saturday, May 18th at Invisible Reality Ministry on 54th and Center at 6 p.m. and the theater, the performance is sold out. But because I'm the production coordinator, I have seats yet available. And I would like to invite our panelists, the 5 of you, to be my guests there that evening. So if you are available and can make it, I would like each one of you to be there. It's a theatrical production on mental illness. There's monologues, there's dance, there's music. It's a production that's been around for 13 years. We've been on hiatus since the pandemic. And it's newly done with new actors, new music, new dance, new choreography. So if you can stick it out for a few more minutes and talk to me after the meeting, that would be great. So thank you very much for coming today. And thank you very much for sharing everything that you've shared. And you really touched me. And I wish I had the mentors that you guys had at the point in time in your life that you did. And you guys are really blessed. So thank you. And I would just like to take a minute or two to share. You guys, I've given you a handout. And this is simply a handout that went because as the representative of the Mental Health Task Force, I sit on the Milwaukee County Mental Health Board, and I'm now the chairperson or chairwoman. And our June meeting will not be here at Independence First. It will be at the Washington Park Senior Center. So we are holding the Mental Health Task Force meeting in conjunction with the public comment for the Mental Health Board. So this was a memo that went out April 16th to the Milwaukee County Mental Health Board, explaining the layout for the meeting. So you have exactly what the Mental Health Board got. So this is basically the details. And then when it says special guests, another group that's going to be invited that's not on here, and is the Criminal Justice Council. Judge Ashley and the executive committee and the executive committee for the Criminal Justice Council is being invited as well. So I just wanted to make that clear for our folks out on virtual land. This will be posted on the website for the Mental Health Task Force, that the June 11th meeting for the Mental Health Task Force will be held at the Washington Park Senior Center on Valete Street. It's like 54th and Valete. That information will be on the website. There is plenty of parking there. And all the details will be in this flyer. And we look forward to having all of you then and there. And the other opportunity you have is if you have comments that you would like made for the task force to make relative to public comment, because that meeting is a public comment. It's the first finance meeting regarding the budget for 2025. So if you have specific items relative to the task force that you want a public comment made, or you want your agency to make, then there is the first opportunity to really make those comments. Do we have anybody here that's gonna take any feedback? Nicole Damiano at Independence First will take feedback. So you can email Nicole.
Got a form too, if you'd like to fill
She has a form here available. And will that be online or can we get it online?
We'll figure it out, Mary. We'll figure
it out.
stuff. But yeah, I do have a Google form for the steering committee, but I do have forms printed out today if there's anyone that would like to share their thoughts and let us know if there's any advocacy that you'd like us to do as part of the mental health task force. Thank you.
We also are having conversation and discussing being a more inclusive task force. And so we hope to be able to do trainings and teach you all how to give testimony, how to give public comment, how to become an advocate and how that works. And so before I pass it back to Mary and we close out, if you are a member of the Mental Health Task Force Steering Committee, can you raise your hand? It's always important for you all to know who is in the room, because if you've ever watched Avengers, these are some of those Avenger folks, like real life, like their day job. They're advocating to make life better for Wisconsinites. So make sure you fellowship and stay tuned after these messages.
So the only message is have a safe trip home. See you in June. And our panelists, really, you could come and make some testimony and June 11th and talk about restorative justice circles and some other things and programming, because the Milwaukee County Mental Health Board controls the budget for all mental health services for youth and adults in Milwaukee County. And your comments would be welcomed. So have a great night.